you were also mentioning that like you work in real estate.
Yep.
And that you said there's the potential debt default that we're seeing these big cities turn into ghost towns. Do you want to explain what you're talking about with that?
Sure. So right now we invest in bonds that have commercial real estate loans as the collateral. So we invest in bonds that have malls, hotels, warehouses, and office. These are large mortgages that are 20, 50, 100, 200, $300 million. And so the other day, and I've been studying the issue of the border and how it's affected these children. And I do believe when I was reading some of the news about the Venezuelan gangs taking over neighborhoods in Denver, and I was thinking, well, geez, like, where did the migrants go that came across the border? They were being bused and flown to many of the sanctuary cities. And so I'm just really numbers and analytical. And so I went to ChatGPT that knows everything, by the way. It's crazy. And I said to ChatGPT, I said, tell me the top 20 cities in the United States where the migrants that came across the border were flown and bused. And it gave me a list of cities. And I looked at it and I was like, holy moly. I was like, 15 of the cities out of the 20 cities where all these migrants were bused have the most distressed commercial real estate in the country. These are the cities that are in decline. There is such trouble right now in these Democrat-run cities in commercial real estate. There are defaults happening right now on large Class A and Class B office building mortgages that are as bad as during the financial crisis. I'm talking about tens of billions of defaults that are happening right now. Americans don't even know about this, okay? And so you ask me, hey, was there other consequences to all the migration that came in here? And I say, absolutely there was. That many of these cities, like say, let's just talk about one of them and talk about San Francisco, okay? Like, I'm proud that America led the world in tech innovation, okay? San Francisco is an unbelievable city, okay? Rich with culture, diversity, free thinking. I'm in favor of all that type of stuff, okay? Very, very innovative in the tech industry. Incredible, incredible city. San Francisco right now is doomed, okay? It's in a death spiral, okay? That the commercial real estate in San Francisco is so distressed that just 4 or 5 years ago, the occupancy in San Francisco was 90%, okay? Right now, there are so many buildings where the occupancy went to 60%. 50%, 40%. Do you know what happens when you go under about 70 in an office building? Okay. You don't have enough income to pay the mortgage debt anymore. Okay. You cannot go below 75 or 70%. These ones
let
that
alone
are at 50.
right?
Pardon me?
Let alone maintenance.
No. It's a doom loop. So basically a number of flawed policies. Okay. And I didn't really intend to talk about policies in some of these cities. You know, I'm really here to talk about this movie and about protecting and saving children. But some of these things are connected. And so in San Francisco, they made some really big mistakes, in my opinion. Number one, that they decriminalized theft and that you don't even get a ticket if you steal stuff under $1,000. Like, first of all, I can't even believe that. Like, I think that if a kid is 13, 14, 15 years old and they shoplift some gum and some other shit, I think they should call the cops and make a huge stink out of it. Like, that's the way our culture, like, I don't know, maybe I'm an old schooler, but I think that stealing is wrong and you should make a huge deal out of it. Now, what did that do? That there are pharmacies and CVS that in San Francisco, all of the retail in the downtown business district right now, because of some of these flawed decisions that the city government and the state made, right? They're closing. They're like, why would we subject our employees to all these people that come in and smash and grab stuff? They walk right out of the store. They fill up all shopping carts and trash bags and they walk out. It's like absolute lawlessness. Okay, that's one. Two, that their policies about these open dare drug and decriminalizing or not prosecuting for fentanyl and heroin, that's a big deal, okay? They're letting people use drugs like that openly and saying, let them do it. Like that's cuckoo. Like that's so dumb, okay? Addiction is a huge problem in our country, okay? It's killing people. And so what that did is that invited lots of crime, okay? And homelessness. And so San Francisco has an incredibly tough time right now with crime and homelessness. And so what is that doing? It's making the larger corporations that lease the office buildings not renew. So office building leases are 10 years. So every year, 10% are gonna expire. And you know what's happening? Nobody's renewing in San Francisco. That these companies are not going to subject their employees to going in that downtown area that is so bad because they're putting their employees at risk. So some of these cities already had flawed policies, okay, that were putting their cities in decline. They doubled down for some reason and welcomed hundreds of thousands of these migrants into these cities and now are having to support them. And then unfortunately, as the news has clearly reported, many of the migrants are exacerbating the issues with crime because there's really no plan to educate them and train them and give them jobs. Like you can't bring migrants in and just give them free housing, okay? Because they're going to go out and hustle, and unfortunately, some of them wind up stealing. So everything I just said about San Francisco, like a third of all, or a half to a third of all the mortgages on office buildings in San Francisco are underwater. That means that they're worth less than the mortgage debt and they're defaulting left and right. So there are some really big consequences going on right now with policies in some of these Democrat cities. Everything I just said about San Francisco, let's go to Philadelphia. I mean, Philadelphia has incredible history going all the way, hundreds of years in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a wonderful city, okay? Philadelphia, it just pains me to see all of the videos about the downtown district and all the crime and homelessness and tent cities and drug use. I mean, there are people all hunched over on fentanyl, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them. And that the same thing there, that nobody's renewing the leases. There's one building on Market Street in there that it was in one of these deals called a SASB deal. It's a bond deal because the mortgage loan's so big, it's like $250 million or something like that. And so they just make one bond out of one mortgage and they cut it up into A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, that the A is going to lose well over half the money. Every single class is going to get wiped out. So say you've got a $250 million mortgage. It got appraised at like $325 million. And you're like, okay, you think they could get back the $250 million? This one building that I'm talking about right now, we think that it's going to sell for 50 or 60 million. It's going to lose 80% on the mortgage. It's like worthless. Like you don't understand what happens. Like
who's going to buy it?
Nobody's buying it because right now,
so it's worth zero.
That's right. So when these offices go into decline, okay, when society is unraveling, okay, all of these policies are so bad, it's making real estate like this worthless because unless you have a tenant that's willing to sign up and to go to work in Philadelphia, which you'd have to be out of your mind to go in there. It's like a war zone.
That's why we're in West Virginia.
It's a war zone right now, and it's getting worse every single day. So
let me tell you, I'll interject. I lived in New York City for a while and the prices were high, but that wasn't what made me leave the city. It was the escalating civil unrest. And so I had seen these protests bubbling up and I thought, man, you combine that with the high cost, I'm going to jump the river. And I went to the Jersey side. I said, it's a little bit cheaper here and I'm away from the mass protests all the time. It's probably better if I'm here. Then a couple bombs were planted on 25th Street and in Jersey City. Some makeshift explosives were planted and blew up. And I thought, things are getting crazy in this country. So I moved to, I immediately then moved to the southern portion of still the New York Metro, but this is in Bayonne. And once I like with the continuing escalation of cost and the constant social unrest and what I saw as an inability to, I saw escalation. I'm like, okay, South Jersey. So then I moved down basically to the Philly suburbs. And I thought, I'm on the other side of Philly. We're in a smaller metro. We're in the suburbs. We live in a bunch of trees. The prices are a lot cheaper. There's no riots and protests. Then the George Floyd riots happened. And I thought, okay, well, we're not in Philadelphia. Then the riots crossed the bridge. And I thought, I'm getting out of here. That was a big deal. We started immediately looking for property, which was in Western Maryland or West Virginia. And then when the lockdowns happened, we were out. The property is substantially cheaper, and now we're in the middle of nowhere because I don't want to be anywhere near what's going on. And since then, I fortunate to say that I don't know if you call it my skittishness or my ability to just see the patterns as they're unfolding.
Will to survive.
Perhaps, but I felt like the paths that were laid out before me in these locations only went to bad places.
Yep.
And I'm like, even in the best case scenario, I'm not going to be happy with the prices as they're jumping and jumping and jumping. Now, my apartment that I lived in when I was in New York, which was $1,950 a month for a 2-bedroom, is something, I think it's like $4,000. It's like $4,000, and this is
Crazy.
This is, I think, what is this? What are we? 7 years, maybe 8 years later. It's doubled in price. So now we're out far away from all the stuff, but we can see what these cities are like and what's been going on with the crime. I mean, you look at Colorado, San Francisco, and they have the poo department. San Francisco has a poop department that literally it's like the fire department, but for spraying down poop on the streets because there's so much of it. And so, anyway, to your point, this is exactly why we're not there anymore. And we're in a building right now we built from scratch. It is actually amazing. People ask all the time. It's 38 feet in the center, 25-foot sides. You've got large concrete pad. There's an internal structure, and the studio that we're in was built internal to a larger building, and we're on this big property in West Virginia. And people are like, you built this from scratch. It's cheaper, it's safer, there's more space, and we don't have to deal with the unrest, the chaos, and the homeless. And that's unfortunate because we did want to build a studio in New Jersey. We would have been there. But the state's mismanaged. The urban areas are horribly mismanaged. And so we said, we're going to invest in West Virginia. Yeah, I'll tell you this, West Virginia loves it. Now we're setting up our coffee shop in West Virginia. We're investing in real estate out here. We don't want to be anywhere near these cities and their failed policies.
When lockdown started, I was still in New York. I'm from New York. And I was thinking how if they shut down the city, it could get to be like the 70s again. My grandfather was a cop in the city in the 70s, and his stories were just dystopian. The city was on fire constantly. He said he had dead bodies every day. And then people would say, well, if the city dies, does it come back? And I would be like, well, yeah, that city came back. But with the policies that are happening now that you're talking about, and the way we're busing in all these people, I don't know how you dig yourself out of the hole.